Okay.
What do you do? Well, this one I guess you do that.
Protective barrier here.
Well, howdy.
Howdy.
That was pretty bad. You guys, you've all had good practice this morning, so let's try one more time, okay? While I figure out where my strap is. Howdy.
Howdy.
It's okay, but one more. Howdy.
Howdy.
I think we're almost there.
Marshall, this here is Creek Johnson, and we just rode in today to tell you all about riding for the brand.
And we'd like to issue a special welcome to those on the back row who were so stubborn they wouldn't move up, and we hope your kids and grandkids are as rebellious as you are.
They are.
And we're from Duchesne, Bass County. Woo.
Pronounce it, and you're welcome.
For a long, long time, Lanny and I were ad guys,
Not bad guys, ad guys.
advertising guys, and we helped a lot of companies develop and understand and promote their brands. And we did it with a tool that's commonly used in the advertising industry called a USP, a unique selling proposition. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later today. That USP is we help these companies figure out what set them apart from everybody else and how they can use that
She said yell.
to yell real loud.
Yeah.
Am I not yelling enough? Really?
There we go.
That's why we told you to move up, okay? So we used this USP to help companies discover what it was that was different about them and that gave them a competitive advantage in how they could serve their customers better than anybody else. We're going to talk about that in a little bit different way today. We're going to have you guys, in a few minutes, develop a personal brand and show you how that can help you be more successful in your work and hopefully maybe even in your life.
But first, we're going to get things started with a little bit of cowboy music. So here we go. First of all, we need you to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the howdy? Okay, here we go. Yeah!
Yeah.
Good. 2, 3, 4. Sun comes up on the open plain. Saddle up once again. Live the way that I understand, and that's riding for the brand. I'm just riding for the brand. Never know where the trail may go, but I'll ride it to the end. Never turn from the work at hand, 'cause I'm riding for the brand. I'm just riding for the brand. Well, a firm handshake with an honest friend gives me a sense of pride. Don't ever care where the trail may end, just as long as I can ride. Yeah! Life is simple, it's an easy road. When you live by the code, if it's right, I'll do it. If it ain't, I won't. It's called riding for the brand. I'm just riding for the brand. Always riding for the brand. I'm just riding for the brand. Yeah! Well, good. Now, you don't usually go to seminars and such and have people sing to you, so that's just really different. But today we're going to be talking about lots of different things. We're going to talk about brands, cowboy brands, and the origin of brands.
Then we're going to talk about what we just sang about, and that's riding for the brand.
And then, like Creek said, you're going to be developing and building your own personal brand.
And then along the way, we're going to be talking about some elements of the Code of the West.
And one thing you'll find out about cowboys is that if we can't find a word that fits, we just make it up. And so we're going to be talking about your braction and how that works. First of all, who knows what a pard is? Who knows what a pard is? What's a pard? Don't know. Okay, good. What's a pard?
It's a partner.
Partner. Perfect. Perfect. Anybody else? Just yell it out. How about anybody else? How about you in the blue?
It's a partner.
That's right. But it's more than just, it's somebody that can help you along the trail. Somebody to ride the trail with you and kind of watch your back. And so what we want you to do now, and it's also somebody that you can exchange ideas with. So what I want you to do now is to turn to the person next to you and say, "Howdy, pard, will you be my pard?" So just do that right now. I got an odd girl out and an odd guy out. So we go 2 and 2 and 2 and 2.
And if you need to get in a group of 3, that's okay. So we just may have to move a chair or 2 or make something happen, because we're going to have you discuss through the course of the morning, just, you know, once in a while brainstorm a little bit about some things we're going to be talking about, and you just need somebody to exchange ideas with.
Okay, has everybody got a pard? Okay, if you don't have a pard, we'd like you to just go outside and wait for us.
Now the next thing we want you to do, you've all got some note paper there, and we give you that because hopefully if you get something out of this that you can write down and take along with you today. But the first thing we want you to write down is a challenge, or sometimes we call it a trial along the trail, maybe a goal, something that you're facing every day at work, something that you know you need to be working on, that you're trying to make happen that maybe hasn't happened yet. And it could be as simple as just getting to work on time. Maybe you have trouble hitting a deadline. Maybe it's, you know, we hear a lot of times, we hear people say, "I need to be more organized." It's going to be individual for each of you. So just write that down. Some kind of a challenge that you face every day at work. Probably in the worst place for your camera, huh? I just thought it might help if I'm here, you don't have to.
Okay, well let's get things started. Well, let's talking about cowboy brands. Now, who's ever heard the term cowboy brand or branding? Okay. How many of you, let me ask you this question. How many of you, by the show of hands, have branded livestock? Get them up there, okay? Raise them high. Now, wait a minute. I just said, who's ever heard of branding? Nobody raised their hand. He said, who's branding? No, I have. What were you doing out there? Why? And we're going to ask you some questions, so you're going to have to yell so everybody can hear you, okay? Why do cowboys use brands? Anybody? Ownership. Ownership, good.
Mark their property.
Mark their property, good. Anything else?
Market your cows, your herd, marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. Great point. Never thought of that one before, actually. That's kind of market your animals.
Yeah.
That's a great thought.
Well, we wanted to find out exactly what cowboy brands were all about. So what we thought we'd do is ask some experts in the field. And so what we did, we saddled up, took a little handheld camera, and we found working cowboys and cowgirls who literally ride for the brand every day, and we heard what they had to say.
Brand has been the defining mark of cowboys and ranches for hundreds of years, and when you hired on to an outfit, you would ride for that brand.
Other than identification, it's a source of pride.
In the old days, an open range, a fellow had to brand his young stock to identify him. When the roundup came, a bunch of ranchers would run their cattle together in big corrals and sort them out, and that's how they told whose was whose.
So your best irons are irons that are open and simple.
Now somebody left a finger floating in the middle of that.
Thought those cowboys were picking their nose. So you're right. You know, the biggest reason, obviously, is that they mark ownership with this brand. But one of those cowboys, Steve Timmons, said something interesting. He said it's a source of pride. And in a few minutes, like we said, we're going to have you develop your own personal brand. And so hopefully it's something that if somebody sees, you know, you can be kind of proud of what that represents. This cowboy right here, his name's Brent Rose, from up in a little community called Park Valley up in northwest Utah. 5th generation rancher, actually 7 generations now with his kids and grandkids. They've all been there on that same ranch for a long, long time. And he said when somebody sees a Rose Ranch cow, that Rose Ranch brand, they should be able to tell what kind of a cowboy we are, what kind of cowboys we are, just from looking at that animal. We take a lot of pride in the way that we take care of those animals. So I thought that was pretty good insight. So think about that pride thing.
Pride? Think about pride. Well, that reminds me of a cowboy that I once knew. He was very, very proud, but he was proud of what he wore. Don't you want to know what he wore? Oh, I'm glad you asked me that question. His name was Brown Paper Pete. Why was his name Brown Paper Pete?
Why was his name Brown Paper Pete?
Well, it's because of what he wore. He wore brown paper boots. He had a brown paper hat. He had a brown paper vest. He had brown paper chaps, and brown paper socks, probably brown paper underwear, I guess. But he was an outlaw, and now he's dead. Why is he dead? Say, why is he dead?
Because he died.
No. Don't say
I want to have an answer.
No.
Why did he die?
Oh,
Why is he dead? Who killed him?
Well, like I said, he was an outlaw, and they hung him.
Why did they hang him?
Why'd they hang him? Well, they caught him rustling. I didn't say they were going to be good. I just said, okay, riding for the brand. Now, who's heard that term before? Now, wait, we just sang a song called "Riding for the Brand." It's like you guys in branding. I don't know.
So what does riding for the brand mean? Anybody?
Representing
Representing who?
yourself or your brand.
Okay, that brand that you ride for. Great point. Anybody else?
Loyalty.
Loyalty? Perfect. Anybody else?
Well, in that case,
So you have to be willing to do what has to be done at the time it has to be done, and that's riding for the brand.
And if you're working for the money, yeah, you got to make a living. But you still, that isn't what you talk about. The main motivation is not money.
Yeah, I rode with a lot of good hands in Montana, and those fellas, whether they were riding for the same outfit all the time or riding for a guy doing day work, they were riding for the brand. You could bet that they'd do the best job they could for that fella.
I'm sorry, that was distracting. You had a bird on your hat there just a second ago. Things like that, they make it kind of fun out here. You never know what's going to happen.
So you're right. Riding for the brand's an old cowboy term. It means saddling up, getting the job done for that person that you ride for, no matter what happens. Even if you're out videoing cowboys and the state bird comes and lands on your hat.
well, you notice I'm not wearing my straw. He landed right here and left a big deposit right there on the brand.
Not a pretty sight. But Brent Rose again said something that we found very interesting. He says, riding for the brand is not working for the money. He says, yeah, we all have to make a living and we all have bills to pay, and that's why we come to work every day. How many of you, just by the show of hands, went to work for state government so that you could become millionaires? I didn't think so. But think back, when you came to work that first day. You get hired because out of 50 or 100 or 200 applicants, somebody went through those resumes and then invited you in for an interview along with 10 or 20 other people. And they saw something in you that they didn't see in anybody else. So somebody said, I need Jana on my team because she's going to make a difference for the people that we ride for. So Jana, and I'm picking on you, Jana, hope that's okay. So Jana comes to work that first day and she's all excited to come in and make a difference. She's got talents and abilities. She brings something to the table that nobody else did, and she wants to make a difference, and she does. And all of you do. But the challenge becomes remembering that, because after a month or 6 months or 5 years, you kind of forget, because you're tied up in deadlines and you have those darn citizens that call you on the phone and they have a complaint, and you kind of you kind of have to be reminded of why I'm doing this in the first place, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Riding for the brand gets beyond just going to work and collecting a paycheck every week. So we want to talk about what it really means to ride for the brand today.
Probably how to do that would be to ask a better, deeper question. And that question would be, what brand are you riding for? So let me just throw that out. What brand are you riding for? Let's have a volunteer. How about you? What brand do you ride for?
I ride for Washington County.
Did everybody hear that?
Good answer.
Okay, good.
Answer. What about you in the pink there? What about you? What brand do you ride for?
I ride for Paiute County.
Paiute County. Okay. Now think a bit broader. What about you? What do you ride? What brand do you ride for?
America.
America. There we go. Now we're getting real big.
right,
That's
that's
great.
right.
How about you there in the salmony orange color?
I ride for local government.
My God, you do. There we go. That's great. Okay, well let's start big. And we started with America. Let's start a little bit narrower than that. So you ride for your association.
Does that make sense that you ride for the UAC? To an extent, obviously. Good. Okay.
Okay. Well, let's narrow it down just a little bit more. What about the UCIP?
Everybody should go, yes, I ride for the UCIP.
You know, that kind of reminds me of that guy who left the outhouse door open, but I'm not going to say anymore. Okay, narrowing it down just a little bit more. You know, you ride, and you said your county.
Lots of you said that.
You ride for your county.
So yell out one big time. What county do you all ride for? Just go ahead and give us a big.
Yeah. That was enough to make me go away.
Absolutely. And yeah, when you get your paycheck, those of you that work, and let's just ask this really quickly. I know we have some HR directors here. Is that correct? How many of you work in HR? Okay. Do we have an attorney or two, a county attorney? Okay, we got some attorneys. What else do we have? Just go ahead and tell us what.
Sheriff's Workers' Compensation.
Okay, we got somebody from Workers' Compensation.
Sheriff's Office.
Sheriff's Office. Good. Anybody else?
Health Department nurse.
Good. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So we got kind of a variety, but all of you work for your counties, do you not? And or most of you work for the counties. And you get your paycheck, and it has, Davis County up in the corner. But who is it really that allows you to get that paycheck? Isn't it? The citizens of your county, the people that that live in that county. And so yeah, you're right for a customer, right?
Not yet.
Did I skip one?
You did.
Dang it, I hate it when
You
I do
ride
that.
for your teams too. We narrowed it down from America down to the association, down to the organization. Now we're talking about teams. Now you ride for teams within your department. Is that correct? You have people that you depend on, people that you expect to ride for your back, or ride for you, and you ride for them as well. Is that correct? Okay.
So what are some of these teams that you might be riding for? Just some examples.
Human resources.
Okay, you ride for a human resources team.
We're
Okay,
going to
good.
change the name of that to Howdy Resources. which is-
Anybody else? Other teams that you might be riding for?
Well, all of our internal customers, because HR serves every department, so we're really writing for them and their efficiencies and performance.
Good. So you got other people that work for the counties, but you're riding for them. Absolutely. Yeah.
I was thinking of our leadership team, our department heads and elected officials, and we're kind of part of that as well sometimes.
Sure. Absolutely. Is there much exchange between counties? Do you help each other along the way? And so could that be a team along the way that you're helping each other ride along? Good. Lots of different teams that you could be riding for. So yeah, thank you. Great example.
Now, Lisa, you said something really important. So say that again really loud. So who do you ride for?
Internal customers,
Yeah, leave the internal part off and just say the other one.
our
real loud.
customers.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Now we're getting to the point where I was a minute ago. So yeah, you're right. And so who are some of your customers?
Or clients or just employees. How about you in the green? You look like you're just ready to sail. Say something.
I am. I'd say everyone. I'm talking employees,
citizens, not just within the county, but those that visit the county. I mean, it's everyone.
Well, that's a great thought too. Because you have people coming into the county, especially those of you that have a lot of tourism in your counties, and most of you do have a pretty good tourism section. Great thought. Anybody else? Other customers that you might be riding for? Okay.
But your point was really well taken, because you have to deal with so many groups of folks and so many, but it really comes down, when you're talking to people, you're talking to one-on-one. Is that correct? I mean, no matter what the group is, sooner or later, you're just talking to that one person. Is that right? Okay, so we call that just coming down to your one customer. So we started huge. We started in America. We started with associations. We started with your counties. We did the teams. We came to your, and I forgot all of them because we did so many customers, and finally that one customer.
And the reason we go to one customer is because we all, not we all, but a lot of us have the tendency to think of customers as a group. Okay, and it's kind of a faceless throng out there. But really, isn't it one individual person at a time that you're writing for, that you've got to make a difference for? You come into work, and it could be somebody on the phone, it could be somebody in person. We love this picture. It's an old iconic cowboy picture of this guy that's had to ride out in a blizzard and save this calf that he's got pulled up on his saddle. All right? So when he rides out, he realizes that calf's missing. He rides out, finds the calf out there, grabs his rope, right? So he can rescue that calf, makes a big loop, starts twirling it. What does that calf do? Does he just stand here and say, "Over here, I'm cold, come get me"? And just allow that cowboy to throw that rope around him? Probably doesn't even know that that cowboy's there to help him, does he? So how many of you have a customer, sometimes it doesn't know that you're trying to help them, trying to know that you're trying to make a difference for them, and sometimes they just don't quite get what you're trying to do or what services you may have. Well, what does that cowboy do? He throws that rope and the calf jumps out of the way, and the cowboy goes, "I guess you really don't want to be rescued, so I'm cold. I'm getting out of here and see you later." Is that what that cowboy does? Probably not. I'm doubting very seriously that that's what you do too, that, yeah, we find a way. We make a bigger loop. We circle around behind. We might even have to get down out of the saddle and get into that snow up to our waist and pull that calf up out of it and put him up on the saddle and rescue that calf. Does that make sense?
Well, let's talk about the cowboy for just a minute too, because now you see that cowboy, he's out in the snow, but you can bet that he was sitting home, probably in front of his warm fireplace. What time of year is this? By looking, just yell it out. It's summer in Wyoming, but now he was probably just sitting back, relaxing, had his boots off, had his hat off, and just was enjoying his relaxation. The last thing he wanted to do was to go out and rescue that calf. But every time, or every chance in life that you get, you always have an opportunity to do something different, to get on your horse and ride out there and really make a difference. And we call that riding the extra mile. That's what that cowboy does, and that's what probably you do. So let me ask the question here of you guys. How many of you know of someone that you work with that rides the extra mile all the time? Raise your hand. You don't know any? Oh, there we go. Great.
How many of you personally ride the extra mile? Do you feel like, that you've ridden the extra mile for somebody? Okay?
Now just a minute. Now, we're not going to be taking names, and nobody's going to be looking or whatever. This is a chance. I bet deep down inside, you always say, I do a pretty good job. And this is your chance to just raise your hand and say, yeah, I ride the extra mile. Come on, raise your hand. Yeah. There we go.
Okay, I'm going to pick on Lisa because she raised her hand when I asked who rides the extra mile. Can you give us some examples of when you've done that, Lisa?
When I need to research something for an employee, it's not a 9-to-5 job. You take work home, or you want to make sure that employee has complete satisfaction in getting their answers. And my team's always riding the extra mile. They're just dedicated because they love what they're doing and they love the people they serve. So that's the motivation, is taking care of people.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else know somebody or want to talk about yourself when you've done it, or somebody that you know that's kind of ridden that extra mile that you'd like to recognize? We're all so quiet today.
No, I know, nobody does.
Somebody told us that Stephen Hadfield is a great example of somebody that rides the extra mile. And they're over there going,
Does anybody know Stephen? Could we all point at him for just a minute? Just all point at Stephen.
Stephen, we're going to put you on the spot here, and you know, somebody just mentioned that you're somebody that's made a difference. You know, where you do. You want to give us a little example, and just don't be shy.
Besides giving us that $20 to point you out.
I can't give you a specific example. I just do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. I don't know.
A true cowboy. He's even got his boots on.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. Good. You know, riding the extra mile is really, and think about this. We kind of define riding the extra mile in a couple of ways. One, it's doing what nobody else is willing to do. All right. But riding the extra mile, really, when you think about it, isn't that what makes work worthwhile? I mean, it's, at the end of the day, when you go home and think about if I had a good day at work, it's the times when you've made a difference for somebody, when somebody's come in with a frown and they've left with a smile. That's really what makes work worthwhile. And so we'd obviously encourage you to be riding the extra mile every single day, because that's really what makes work fun.
Right. You know, and when you do ride that extra mile, you know, when you think about that cowboy, how do you do that? You know, how do you deal with all of these people? We've taken it from a huge, vast array of people all the way down to the one customer. But we feel like in order to really serve that customer well, you have to ride for one other person, and that would be yourself. So whether you're a cowgirl on a fast horse, or maybe you're a cowboy that only has to stay on for 8 seconds, and you got to stay on for a whole lot longer than 8 seconds. You know, it really comes down to riding for that one important brand, and that is yourself. So, we're going to talk to you right now about riding for the brand, and we're going to have you make your own personal brand. But you might say to yourself now, you might say now, what makes a good brand?
What makes a good brand?
Look at that.
If you're going to make your own personal brand, this is something that's going to keep you motivated to come in and ride the extra mile every single day. What would go into a personal brand like that? Any thoughts?
You talked about brands before, kind of what you thought about it. And we've reviewed what cowboy brands were all about. We talked about the riding for the brand.
What should go into a personal brand?
What you believe.
What you believe? That's a great one. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Heart.
Heart? Explain that, would you please?
That everything you do is done good, feel good about what you're able to do for people.
That's great.
Show you care.
Is everybody hearing that? These are great points. Thank you very much. Perfect. Anybody else?
Who you are.
Who you are? Awesome.
You know what, I'm thinking that they're not ready yet. They're not ready to build their own brand. I think they need a little bit more explanation. Don't you think so? You need some more explanation?
I need more explanation.
See?
Each brand signifies whatever the rancher wanted to express, maybe, you know. A lot of them were just an initial, the initials of the ranch that he run. But a lot of times they use symbols and things to signify something that was near and dear to them.
Our talents never become a gift until we're willing to give them away.
When you brand something, horses or even your cattle, when you go to market and you get a compliment on your brand, on your cattle and your brand, put a smile on your face at the end of the day for certain.
I kind of use my hat to signify my brand.
So, do you have to be a good artist? Everybody say no.
No.
That's right.
I remember Brent said the simpler the better.
That's right. So in a couple of minutes, we're going to have you build your own brand. But you might need a little bit more, more help here. And let's talk about what Creek started to talk about at first. And that would be your
Brand.
No.
Building
Your, what is that?
Oh, USP.
USP. Who knows what USP stands for?
Selling.
Okay. Say it loud.
Unique
Selling.
Point. That's great. It is proposition, but I just couldn't fit it. So the unique selling point, like Creek said, when we used to be branding companies, we find out what that company sold, what it is that's unique about that particular company. We find out what the target market was, and we find a way to put them together. We find the exact medium that worked. And so when we were thinking about branding companies, we thought, now, how about branding people? So we thought, well, now let's see. Let's see if the same principles can apply. So what do we start with? What do we start with? USP. Very good. Okay, then what comes next? What does USP stand for? What's the first word?
It's unique. Has to be unique.
It has to be unique.
To you.
To me?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Okay, but then what would come next? What would come next? The S.
Selling.
Selling, but what about singular? Because we're using this as an individual kind of a thing. So singular is very, very important. Now P. What does P stand for? What?
Passion.
Would you say that really loud?
Passion.
She is great. She's the first person to do that. So great. Good job. So your unique, singular passion. And that's what we're going to be talking about when you build your own personal brand.
Now again, remember that this whole exercise is to help you kind of discover or rediscover what it is about you that you bring to the table that can help you make a difference for that person that you're writing for. What is it that gets you motivated every day? And what is it a passion that you might have? If you had all the time and money in the world to spend doing whatever you wanted to do, what would you do? That might be it. Or what is it about maybe it's a unique singular personality trait. You know, what is it about you that you bring to the table that nobody else does that you can use to help make a difference for somebody else?
That'd be PT, wouldn't it?
That's all one word. Personality.
Oh. Well, now we've done this for lots of folks. Now this, we showed you all those other brands that we've done. This particular one, the one up in the upper corner, was a realtor who just, we said, what do you love to do? What is your passion? She said, well, I love to paint. So her particular brand was a heart with a paintbrush through it. Pretty simple. It just reminded her of what she loves to do.
This guy up in the right-hand corner is an insurance broker, and he sold insurance for a living, but what he really loved to do was build cars, build hot rods. So he tinkered on the weekends, and so he just used a wrench for his personal brand. Down at the bottom, this was a gentleman who, kind of a fallback, he used his initial. His name was Keith, but he's obviously flopped it here. We'll talk about that in just a second. So quite often people will incorporate their initials into a personal brand. Now, we're going to give you the chance to make this brand. I just want to make something really a point before I forget about it. We realize that a lot of you probably have family brands, okay, that have been passed down from generation to generation. Can't use that, okay? This is a personal brand, something that's inherent to you on a personal level that we're going to have you design, okay?
Unless you help design it yourself. So, you know, we're almost ready to go, but you might be saying, can't I just have one more example? But I heard you, but nobody else did. So
One more example, please. One more example, please.
Oh, good job. One more example.
Those are stair steps in my personal and spiritual growth. Initial, my first name, first initial, my last name, and with a rocker underneath it. And we could kind of develop it in the house because we like our kind of house to rock and everybody come over and have it.
It's actually a Korean symbol. It's for martial arts and it stands for good life.
So I think you probably have enough examples and enough so you know what to do, right? You kind of know what to do. Think about your passion. What drives you? What motivates you? What's the thing that gets you the most excited personally? And then see if you can't put it into a brand.
If you love to golf, it might be a golf club. If you love to garden, it might be a flower, if you love your family, if that's your main motivation, you know, just all different kinds of things. And we're going to give you a couple of minutes to actually just draw that brand on a piece of paper there. And we're going to play a little mood music while you do that. So it's time for you to let your inner first grader come out and have a little fun here. Draw your personal brand.
When the music stops, that can only be one thing. Time's up. Okay, by show of hands, who drew a picture of something that was near and dear to him? That's great. Who used their initials?
Did anybody use a combination of a picture and their initials to kind of make something? Okay, that's awesome. How many of you, by the show of hands, are still working on it? That's okay. This is a progressive thing, so you may have ideas come along as we work, and even after we're done here, we hope you take this with you and continue to work on it.
And the last question we have is, who would be willing to come up and share their brand with us? Now we can get volunteers up pretty easily. So who would like to come up and show us their personal brand? Okay, perfect. Come on up.
Please. Appreciate that.
Come on up. Has everybody got this?
Is it okay if I erase this code?
Yeah. Okay, tell us your name and who you work for.
Okay, so I'm Leif Summerhays. I'm with Workers' Compensation Fund. I'm the one charged with putting you to sleep this afternoon at 1 or 2 o'clock.
So tell us about your personal.
Okay, draw that brand and make it really big so everybody in the back can see it.
Alright, so here's my brand. It starts with my initial L. So there's my L for my first name, Leif.
Right.
But then I come over here and I put that. It's kind of like a block U. I'm a huge University of Utah fan, and that's like my thing. My family, we love to go to the games. And then I put 6 descending lines representing my family. So there's my wife and my 5 children. So those are the things that are my passion, and that's my brand right there.
Perfect. That's great.
Just one more. And I'll warn you that as we go along, this gets a little tougher, okay? And so we're going to get some of you up here to share, so you might as well, okay, thanks.
Did you say it's going to get harder?
The attorney gets it, okay. Thanks, Eric. Tell us who you're with and what's your name is. And
I'm Eric, and I'm with Washington County.
And all of a sudden, life disappeared.
I'm gone. Sorry. I'm not nearly this creative. That was awesome.
I guess you could say we just got the L out of here.
This is my bad.
Oh, look at this.
I couldn't do this on a piece of paper, and I tried to draw fingers for like 5 minutes, and I could never do it.
That's great.
So my brand would be my hand, because the thing that I'm passionate about and that I find fulfillment is when I'm lifting and helping others. And whether that's in my job or in my home life.
A helping hand.
Perfect. Pretty simple, okay? But very, very insightful on both of those, so thank you for sharing those. Do you have time for one more? Let's move on, okay? All right. Because what we want you to do now, remember at the very beginning we asked you to write down a challenge or a goal or something that you're working on at work? We want you to pull that out now, because there's a connection between what you love to do, that you've illustrated in your brand, and what you have to do or what you need to be doing at work. So we want you to take a minute and kind of find that connection. Like the real estate lady that we talked to. We said, okay, now what's your challenge? She said, you know, I got to show property every day, but I'm just tired of doing that. And so we said, okay, now your passion was, she said, painting. I love to paint. So we said, well, what is it about painting that you love the most? She said, well, you know, I love a blank canvas, because a blank canvas can be anything. And it's just up to my imagination to make this be something special. And I said, okay, so how does that relate to showing property? She said, well, let me think for a minute. All of a sudden the light came on and she said, okay, well, when I'm thinking about showing property, I'm thinking about taking these people. Now this can be anything to them. This is like a blank canvas. This can be reflecting of their family. This can be anything, a place to grow. It can be all of those things. And so she was able to then say, okay, well, when I think about showing property, I'm thinking about the blank canvas. I'm thinking about the passion that I have before I get to paint, and that way I can show the prospective clients, I can reflect that passion onto them so they can get excited about the new property as well. This insurance broker that we talked about with the wrench, you go, well, what's the connection between a wrench and selling insurance? And so we worked on it a little bit, and again, kind of the light came on for him, and he goes, you know what, there are people out there. The challenge that he wrote down, by the way, I should mention, was he knew he needed to prospect more. And he's very successful, but he says, there's something about going out and knocking on doors and finding new people that's just, you know, good for you, and plus it helps your business grow. He says, what's the connection between that? And he goes, well, all of a sudden it dawned on him that there were people out there who had insurance policies that could be fixed, or could be repaired, or could be maybe souped up a little bit or improved so that they serve, you know, the policies serve their needs better. And so he says, I need to go find those people that I can, you know, repair their policies and make them better. This guy on the bottom, I mentioned his name was Keith. He says, I come to work every day and I'm kind of representing my work day in that world, that round circle. And he says, every day I run into walls and challenges that I have to fix. And so he's got that wall there on the right side. But then he flopped that K. He says, now, when I look at that, it reminds me that I am greater than any challenge that I have, you know, that I face on a daily basis. So he's got that greater than symbol on the side. And I thought that's pretty insightful. So take a minute, turn to your part if you can't do it yourself. Think about it for a second. See if you can't find that connection. And that's why we had you pick a part. Sometimes your part can see it quicker than you can. So just kind of go back to that personal brand, then go back to your challenge and see if you can't find that connection between your brand and your challenge. And we'll give you a couple minutes to do it right now.